Hey there. I so glad you made it. I can't find my chapstick. Anybody got a chapstick I can borrow? This kind of makes me mad. Anyway, I'm a few minutes late, but that's what I like to do. Normally, we would be doing this. Let me make sure I'm not covering that. Flip this around. I'm a pro, y'all. You know it. You know I'm a pro. All right. I'm doing this in my mother-in-law's room, the impossible room to walk through. Oh, God, let me show y'all something. Trying to walk through this. To get over here, I want to show you where we normally do this at. Some clothes over here. You've met her. Normally we're in there. That's my normal space, but that's loud, and you know we're gonna do this from a nice quiet spot. Got the house to myself. Got the mother-in-law's room to myself. Try to get this organized. Here we go. Okay, so hey, all right. It has been since July 28th, 2017. No, not 18, sorry, 2018, that this situation has brewed, and sometimes it hits peaks and sometimes it goes into valleys, but it's been here. We're talking about the Dibble situation. So, for those who don't know, Michael Dibble, um, pretty big YouTuber out of Slab City for this community. And on July 28th, 2018, he was arrested. You can look it all up for some pretty heinous stuff. Now, whether or not that is true, we're going to find out. He's still awaiting a trial. He has not accepted a plea. He's going to fight this stuff. So all that evidence has to come out in court. And we don't know. You can only speculate. We've heard plenty of stories from people who were there. Some of them to the contrary to what we've heard about Mike Dibble, and some of those stories have backed up what we've heard about Mike Dibble. So there has been another looming story that I heard a little bit about in Kaz's chat once, and it interests me, and I went on the hunt. And with the help of someone who no longer associates with me, we were able to find Jane. And we're going to call her Jane Doe. And I'm going to ask Working to Be, if you're in here, or Nikki, if you still have yeah, Nikki, you do. People who are going to mention names on here, if you'll just block them, I'm going to go like with maybe a 3-strike policy, and then I'm just going to shut the chat part down. I don't really want to do that because I want to give you all a chance to say what you want to say, and I'm not usually the kind of guy who will do that. But just to stop speculation as who I'm talking to, we'll block people who say names, any names, and then I'll go back and unblock the people, because they were probably just trying to troll. And I don't really want to be a channel that has people on permanent block. That's not really what I want to do. But for this situation, I just want the focus to be on the story part and not, trying to say who this might be. So Jane is her name for this story, and I'm just going to let her come on and tell her story. This will squash the rumors at least, and or maybe kick up a few more, who knows, but it'll be her story. So it's going to take me a second to get her back on here, and let me see. She's probably not watching because I told her I'm going to call her right back. So I'm going to try to call her right back real quick and then pop her back on. So just hang with me. It's going to look weird for a second, but hang with me here. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
Hello.
Hey, Jane, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. We are live now, Jane. So I had to do it a different way, but we are live now. So I know my camera looks a little shitey, but let's go ahead and do a test. Just give me a count to 10 for me real quick.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
You sound good to me on my end. Let me make sure. I'm looking at the chat real quick to see if it sounds good there. Let me see here. Anybody want to let me know if it sounds good? Sounds good. Okay, I see. Sounds good. Okay. All right, Jane. So, tell me, how did you meet Michael Dibble?
So the first time I ever saw Michael Dibble, he was in my neighbor's car. They were on my property that I lived on because um, my neighbor, there was an RV there that my neighbor had gotten from me and my ex-partner. And he just, like, it was weird. I didn't even talk to him, but there was just this guy in the back seat of my neighbor's car just staring at me. Like, didn't break gaze, nothing, just stared at me. And I was just like, who is this guy? So then a couple days later, I went over to my neighbor's house to say hi. We didn't hang out very often, but, you know, we hung out sometimes. And there he was, and we kind of met and hit it off. And I went back over to my house, and he showed up at my house, I think, like the next day or something, and basically said he was really interested in me and blah, blah, blah. And so we spent a little bit of time together, but I had to leave like the next day to go fly back to where my kids were because they were staying with family, because I was just gotten out of the relationship with their father and had to kind of clean up the mess he left before I could bring them back home. And so I'm like a recently single person, suddenly a single mother of two, and he was very charming, and I didn't feel anything. You know, I let him even kind of house sit my house since he was so close while I was gone, because I had two dogs that needed to be kind of watched. And so the summer progressed. I guess this was like the end of June when we met, of 2017, I guess. And you know, he you know, he kind of wanted more than I was ready for, so I kind of pushed him away. He got a little upset about that, but we still stayed, you know, friends, and we hang out from time to time. And there's a few times where I had to go run into town to get groceries or something, and he offered to watch the kids for me, and he was good with the kids. I didn't feel like, you know, I couldn't trust him.
How old were the kids?
My son at the time was 16 months, and my daughter was had just turned 3.
Okay.
And so I am very paranoid about who I leave my kids with. But I felt it was okay. So the first time I left him alone with them, I think I was gone maybe 45 minutes to an hour. I went and grabbed the mail, and I went to town, got a couple things, came back. Everything seemed pretty normal, nothing to worry about. And whenever someone does watch my kids, I always, like, when I change their diaper or whatnot, I'm always looking to make sure there's no signs of anything weird. And because this was kind of a new thing for me to trust them with him. So then the second time, I think I was gone for 2 hours. And when I came home, my daughter was sitting at the table crying, and my son, I believe, was asleep, and she told me that Mike had hurt him. And I was like, what? And then Mike's like, well, what happened was I accidentally bumped her, and that's why she's crying, and you know, made it seem pretty plausible that, you know, that it was just an accident, that he bumped her or whatever. But I was like, and I didn't really question what what my daughter told me, but it kind of made me feel weird. So after that, I was real hesitant to leave him alone with them, because just something. And I even asked my friend who would come out and hang out with both of us, you know, when she'd come over, and she liked Mike. She didn't see him as a problem. I even questioned her, like, do you think I should worry, you know? And she's like, I don't think so, you know, like, I don't get a bad vibe. And, you know, she's been through some stuff. So I was just like, okay. So I think there was one more time.
So hold on one second. I had an awful interruption. I can't even believe it. I got this whole thing set up to be perfect, but my neighbor just knocked on my door. So and I don't want to repeat because the whole audience heard, and I'm just want to recenter for just a second. The kids are 3 at this point, right? And you've known Mike for how long?
Probably, I think at least it was like at least a month by that time.
Okay, and so you have a 3-year-old daughter and a 16-month-old son. And who said that Mike had hurt him? The daughter, obviously.
Yeah.
And it was a physical, like, hurt, or was it a touch?
She didn't say when I tried to question her. She just kind of closed. She just her answers. She didn't really answer.
Right.
And she kind of, so it was really hard. So I was like, well, I'll just wait and I'll ask after Mike leaves.
Okay.
And I kind of had him, go because I was just like, I was a very protective mother. So my daughter crying, and even though it was an accident, I was still upset.
Was he on any drugs or anything? Did you think, or did you think he was sober?
He's probably stoned. I mean, we smoked together and stuff, and that there are some things in hindsight I look back on now that kind of seem odd, but kind of it fits. So the third time, the last time I left him alone, I took my daughter and I left him with just my son, just to go get the mail and just to get I think her and I went for a little walk near the river for like 15 minutes to get some kind of one-on-one time. And I came back and nobody was at my house. And I was just like, okay, well, so then I went over to my neighbors because I was like, well, they're probably there. And yeah, they were there. My son was crying when I picked him up, but didn't seem like overly upset, just typical, oh, where have you been, Mom, kind of cry, But I kind of didn't like that he was at my neighbor's with my son because my neighbor's house really wasn't like a kid-friendly kind of place.
Was your neighbor, did your neighbor, and I know I keep asking this, but did your neighbor do drugs and things? I mean, was it the kind of place that was bad for kids or just not kid-friendly?
Just, there were no kids there. It was more kind of like, and he was like,
partier?
I mean, pretty much it was just marijuana, if anything. There, if there was anything more, I wasn't aware.
Okay.
So then after that, I had to move out of the house I was in. So pretty much when I moved, I left town for a couple weeks to stay with a friend. And when I came back, I stopped at my old house because I still had some things there. And the fires had happened where an old friend of mine had lost his place. And so he got permission from my landlady to move into mine. So I had left some stuff there for them to get by because they had lost everything. And so anyway, I stopped there, and then I stopped by the neighbors where Mike was and talked to him. And there was one woman there that was an old friend of his they were helping my neighbor. And then he said another of his friends was about to show up, and they were probably going to party a little bit later. And if I could get away, to come back and hang out. And I'm a single mom. I've just been nonstop with my kids for 2 weeks and I'm going to my brother's house. So I went and put him to bed and my brother stayed there to watch him. And, I said, I'll be back later. And when I got back over to my neighbor's house, Mike was in my neighbor's house, and I was told he was freaking out. And could I help? And so I went inside, and basically he had taken a bunch of acid, and he was kind of had no sense of no equilibrium, was just falling over, and the neighbor, it was like his parents' house, so he didn't want his mom's antiques to get broke and stuff like that. So we got him outside the house, but then outside posed another challenge because it's rocky ground and there's metal stuff, he could fall over and stab himself essentially if he wasn't careful. So me and this other girl that had known him for a while, we kind of held him down, which I feel is really cruel, but it was for his own protection. And then once he settled down, she left because she had hurt her wrist when we were trying to kind of subdue him a little bit. And I just kind of sat with him. And as I'm sitting with him, you know, he's kind of doing his little mumbling to this, that, you know, but he's finally kind of calm. And then he just kind of is like staring at me. And then he keeps staring at me. And then he just gets like this look on his face. And he's just like, I am so sorry. And I'm like, what do you mean he's like, I am so sorry. I've hurt so many, and I've hurt and he's like, and I'm sorry for hurting your kids. And I'm like, what do you mean hurt my kids? You know, like, did it, you know? And I'm like, I go, you mean sexually? And he's like, yes. And I'm like, I go, and others? And he's like, yes. And he was going, and I was just in such shock. Like, if I had been thinking clearer, I would have tried to probably record the conversation or at least had another witness there. But I was in such shock and disgust that I told him that he better get his ass out of town, because people like that do that stuff don't last long. And when I left, I went back to my brother's house and I told him, and on my way out leaving, I told the other two women that were there, this is what's wrong. He's a freaking child molester, blah, blah, blah. And I left, went to my brother's. He told me if I really thought that this was a feasible thing, that, you know, to make a police report. And so I did. And they supposedly investigated him a few days later.
What date was this, roughly?
This was like, let's see, I think the end of September, beginning of the very end of September, I think, or the middle of September. It was in September.
2017?
Yes.
Okay.
And so
you make a police report?
So then the police had me bring the kids in to see if we could kind of talk to them, but they were so young. He's like, I can't even roll, you know, they weren't very, you know, they couldn't communicate very well at that time.
Right.
So he's like, based on the fact that he was inebriated and that my kids can't really say much, there was not much he could do. He said that they looked into his record and they didn't find anything questionable, which right there, after all the stuff that has been revealed on his record, I personally, in my opinion, based on how my neighbor treated me after that happened, and that there was previous stuff, I think that, and this is hearsay, I know, but my gut feeling is that my neighbor, I think, paid off those cops.
Oh.
And because those cops in that county are crooked, and that is why they didn't do much more. I mean, plus, there wasn't really evidence, you know. So I do understand, and I kind of had mixed feelings. I mean, I met with Mike a couple times after that. I wouldn't let my kids go anywhere near him, but I met with him to kind of like gauge for myself. Was he that kind of a person? Was he not? You know, I needed some closure.
Right.
And we parted as friends, but I always had this doubt. And so when he contacted me when they were starting to do the YouTube channel, the Goonies channel, I mean, he had told me about it, and I'd seen him take some videos here and there for it when he was working at my neighbor's and stuff like that. And then
so he has videos on his channel from that time period?
I know he used to. I don't know if they're still there.
Is it the Camp Goonies channel maybe, or is it maybe like just a Mike Dibble channel or a different channel?
It could be a Mike Dibble channel. I remember looking him up and I saw like just a couple clips. He didn't have a whole lot. Nothing. I don't think I was in any of them or anything. But when he was airing the Camp Goonies channel, I had moved out of the county, and I he called me and, we kind of talked a little bit and he's like, yeah, you should come down here, blah, blah, blah. It's awesome and it's cheap and, your kids would love it. And I was just like, that's Southern California. I don't want to be there. No offense. But
Did you ever mention to him, like, hey, man, do you remember saying this to me? Or?
Oh, no, we talked about it before he left.
What?
And he says, he kind of denied it. And
were you face to face or over the phone?
We were face to face.
How did you read his body language when you spoke to him sober, and he denied it?
It was believable.
Okay.
And that's what made it so hard.
Yeah.
It's like whenever there's a threat like that, that is a possible something happen like that. It's just like, even though I'm someone who wants to believe the good in everybody, it makes it hard to be 100%,
Right.
So I but it's like you keep your enemies closer, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I maintain contact with him. And I remember watching his show on Goonies, and then there was this one episode, which I haven't had time because there's so many to try to go back through. But he mentioned something about how he liked little toes and little fingers or little feet or something like that. And it was just the 2-3 seconds he said that. It was weird. It just gave me this very eerie feeling. And I kind of stopped watching after that.
Wow.
And partaking, because I was just like, that kind of gave me this really just weird feeling. And then all the stuff came out with like the whole, the solar thing, and then he got in trouble. And suddenly I'm reading this article about him, and I'm like, no crap, really? Like, and then it just kind of cemented it in. And so I don't know how much he got to my kids, but I have a feeling he got to them a little bit. And I think he always favorited my son. So I kind of have this scary feeling something has happened. I mean, my son does have angry outbursts and certain things, but he was so young, I mean.
It happened to me at that age, Jane. It happened to me at that age, and my mom knew about it and told me about it later because I was having issues in my teenage years. And I got caught in the closet with the babysitter. She was 18 and I was 12. My mom came home and caught us in the closet. She's showing me how to do things.
Yeah.
And so my mom told me about that happening to me when I was like 18 months old or something like that. And so yeah, it can affect your behavior because it's subliminal.
Uh-huh.
Something was wrong.
Yeah, and I've had things happen to me too that I still haven't quite remembered everything. So.
And what about like since then? Now we're talking. I guess your son is close to 3 and your daughter 5, something like that.
Yeah, my son just turned 4,
okay.
And my daughter's about 5.5. Yeah, and.
Have you ever tried to revisit this with them? Since, maybe being triggered by him being arrested last year or, in 2018?
Well, when I was watching the Camp Goonies on YouTube, I kind of had my daughter and son, they would kind of be in the room and I'd be like, oh, you remember so-and-so? And they do, and they remember his dog and everything. And I kind of tried to broach it with Kayana a couple times. Sorry, I know I shouldn't be mentioning it. But she did not have really a clear, nothing. Every time she would answer kind of a question, it would change, or, she's kind of in that stage where she would just kind of say things. So it was really hard and she didn't really say anything that made me convinced, so I kind of think she's kind of blocked it out, if anything.
Yeah.
And
are you convinced? How? I mean, now seeing that he's been arrested again, he has not been convicted. None of us know the details for sure because it's an ongoing deal. But does this convince you?
I'm about 99% convinced that he may not have done something truly traumatic towards my children, but he definitely crossed a line with them. I am convinced about that, just because in hindsight, looking back, he used to try to get me really, really stoned and talk me into taking naps. But I'm not a nap person, and I had a high tolerance at the time, so that wasn't going to happen.
How did that go? How did he try to do that? That's interesting.
Like, well, because he had dabs, and I didn't smoke a lot of dabs because they were really strong. And he'd always be like, "Oh, come on," and then he'd be like, "Oh, you should go take a nap," like he's trying to help me. But I was always like, "No, I'm okay. Like, I got too much stuff to do to take a nap." Wow. And he would try to talk me into leaving the kids with him, but a lot of time I would just say, "No, I'm good." And then there was
trying to get you to leave. Wow.
So for a guy that's supposedly really into me, right? There are certain things a woman notices, but it was like after the first couple days I met him, like things were kind of like in a sweet little kind of honeymoon phase. And then when I came back with the kids, of course things changed because I got my kids around. But it was like he wasn't really into me as much, I guess. And though we'd still hang out, but then it was just like, it was just weird. There was just a weird feeling like, okay, you're interested, but you're kind of not really that interested. Like, I did.
And you don't have to answer this, obviously, Jane, but were you intimate with Mike Dibble?
I was, yes.
Okay, and did you feel like that, because as you said before, women can tell, did you feel like he was as interested in you as you were him, or did you feel like in those moments maybe he had an ulterior?
Well, I think in the beginning, it was like, okay, we had like 2 days around, like, before I had to leave to go get my kids. And then I was gone for like a month before I came back with my kids. So we only texted, and we didn't really sext or anything, and then it was like, wow, this guy's a good lover, blah, 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 cool, but when I came back, he was like ready to move in my house. And I was like, no, you were just house sitting. You have somewhere to be. Like, I don't mind you wanting to stay here occasionally, but like, I am not ready for any kind of relationship, nothing serious. So I wanted to keep it like more like a friends with benefits kind of thing. And he got really kind of butthurt about that for a little while. But then he came and dropped a note off on my door because I was gone or something. So when I got home, there was this note, "Hey, I'd like to talk, blah, blah, blah." So we started talking again, and we hang out. We didn't really fool around too much. It was more just kind of a friend thing then, which was fine,
So when your kids came in the picture, you feel like he became less interested sexually than you?
Yeah, like he kind of, I felt like almost he was trying to manipulate me a little bit because, like, I don't know, it was like, it's so hard to pinpoint an exact example of this, but, like, after the kids went to bed, I was like, yeah, if you want to come over and spend the night or whatever, that's cool. And he'd come over and we'd be talking, and suddenly he'd get all offensive, like defensive, like, and it would be over nothing, hardly anything, just some like, wow. And then he'd leave like in a huff. And it was just kind of like, really? Okay. And that's kind of what I thought was weird. And then, I know he was kind of friends with another woman in the town near there that had some kids, but I never knew her name really or connected with her, but I did remember him telling me about somebody. So when what he's waiting trial for happened, I kind of was worried. I started wondering about her. Like, oh. So part of my reason for being willing to talk about this is, yes, I don't have hard evidence. I have a mother's intuition. But considering a week before he confessed in his inebriated state to me those things, he had told me about his daughter in Pennsylvania. Like, they went to go visit his mother, and his mother thought things were going on between him and his daughter, so then called his mother who had raised him or whatever, and then, or it was a mother and grandmother. Anyway, he lost custody of her for 6 months over that.
And there was rumors. I mean, he wasn't arrested or anything for that, right? This is just like family rumors.
No, he did go to jail. His daughter got taken away.
Oh.
This should be on this. I think his mom was in. I think it was his grandmother in Pennsylvania that they had visited, but it was his mother in Florida who had pressed the charges, because the grandmother said that, in the morning, she went by into Mike's room and he was sleeping with his daughter, but she thought it was weird. And then his mother kind of ran with it, I believe. At least this is what Mike had told me.
Mike literally told you this?
Yes.
And he was not inebriated when he told you this, right?
No, this was a week before.
Okay, yeah. A week before.
I think that we were talking. This was a phone conversation him and I had.
Okay. And he was just frustrated. He was just letting out frustrations, saying they believe this, but he wasn't admitting to you that he did it. He was saying this is what they believe, right?
Yeah, and that he hadn't, and I think it came up because I think it was one of his kids' birthdays coming up, and we were talking about his kids, and then he told me about that. So then when he confessed that stuff to me, because that conversation about his daughter had happened a week before then, that's what also kind of made me go, wow, this guy is a really not good person.
When he did that, when he was tripping on acid, besides confessing about your own children, did he? Because you said he said something about hurting so many people. Did he confess or tell you about other things that he might have done?
Not specifically. This is one of the things I regret, is that I didn't question him further before I left. But he said he had hurt other kids, and when I asked him if he meant physically or sexually, he said both, basically. That so I know that there are others out there, and that is kind of part of why I am coming forward, because if anyone has any more hard evidence, because if he is that kind of a bad person, he needs to go away for a long time.
Yeah.
And if anybody else can have that proof that I can't provide, I'm hoping if they hear this, they'll be willing to try and step out too, because, you have people almost are conditioned these days to think that being molested or having things happen is just a normal part of life now. And it's very sad.
Right, it is. You're absolutely right. All right, let's do it like this. So if there's someone who watches this video who has some information that they would like to share with you, we can have them get in touch with me, and I can bridge the gap. I'll talk to you about it, and if you think it sounds legit, I can put you in touch with them. That way we can keep you anonymous, and but also achieve a goal that you're set out to do. Because if someone, I'm going to hashtag this video, so if someone's looking to find out if their child also might have been, involved with Mike Dibble, that they can come through here, through me, and my email on my About page, and I can put you in touch with Jane if Jane feels like that's somebody she can, talk to. That way we can keep you separated, and because there'll be trolls that'll fuck with us or whatever, I'm sure, but That way I can be the bridge gap there and make sure that, you know, we sort of sort it out and make sure that it's legit before you get in contact with them.
Mhm.
Because by the way you've described it to me, if indeed, you know, I know when I did acid like maybe 7 or 8 times before I had my worst trip at 19 years old, and I never touched it again because my mind got out of control. And one of the things I did was I talked about all of the stuff that happened to me when I was a kid, you know. Um, but
It's a truth
I wasn't
serum.
making shit up. I was literally telling truths. It's like a truth
Well, that's
serum.
why I felt it like, and I've done my fair share in my life, and I felt like nobody who is going to confess this sort of thing on that substance if it isn't true.
That's how I feel about it. That's just how I feel about it. And maybe Dibble's rewired differently, and maybe, you know, he imagines things and it's all fake. But there's so many accusations at this point and coincidences. I put that in parentheses, that it becomes real hard to believe that this isn't true. It just on my part, it's hard to believe that it's not true.
Yeah.
I want to believe that it didn't happen, that none of this happened. I want to, because from what I've watched on video, you know, I like Mike Dibble, but you can attest, and you have in your story, that he's not exactly the guy we see on video. You know, that, like you said, he got irritated at small things and butt hurt, and, you know, running out the door over what seemed to be petty stuff to you. That indicates an underlying theme to me in his life, that there are things he tried to keep under wraps, and that eats away at you when you're on acid, man. You get
Right?
anxiety attacks on acid when you're trying to hold stuff down.
Yeah.
That's my experience anyway. So, all right, Jane. Is there anything else you want to say, and or say to anyone who may know or may have a similar story or may know Dibble and they had kids with around Dibble? Is there anything else you want to get out there? Um, you can yeah, the platform's yours to say your finals piece, and then we'll start with that. We'll let it off with that. So go ahead. I'm just going to sit back and have you summarize what you'd like to say, and we'll wrap it up.
All I can say is for women out there, especially when you are a single parent on your own, you keep those babies close, and even though you want to have your fun too, you gotta like be really careful of who you bring your kids around, and it's scary. It's like I have a lot of anxiety over the whole thing about taking my kids hardly anywhere, and just silence is saying it's okay. And I hope none of you are ever that have ever been affected by something like this is going to say it's okay. So just be strong and follow your gut and your intuition.
And come out of the shadows.
Yep.
All right, Jane. Thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for giving you know, this a public forum, because we had heard, you know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and you have now shared the entire story with the audience. They can now decide on their own what they think, and it's just another example of, you know, gosh, it gets so close to being a fact. You know what I mean? That you just it's like you're 2 inches away from this being a fact. You almost got a police report. You almost were able to get, you know, like if you had that on audio, the what
Well,
difference that would have made. You know what I mean? If you had been able to tape that and play that back for people, it would have made such a big difference. Obviously.
yeah, and I believe me, I like kick myself all the time for that, because I know a lot of people that respect him and don't want to believe that that's the kind of person he is. You know, I didn't want to believe it either. I still have a hard time wanting to believe it. Like, but there's too many coincidences. There's just too much that just yeah, it's just eerie. And you know, I don't want to, you know, I just hope someone out there has the proof and is willing to come forward with it.
All right, Jane, thank you for coming on the show and sharing this. Anyone with any information, please contact me at chimneyvent@gmail.com. It's in my About page, and I'll chat with you, and then I can get you in touch with Jane if indeed you have some information. And again, I want to make sure that I say Mike Dibble is innocent until proven guilty, and at this point, he has not been proven guilty. This is her story, and this is I believe that you believe exactly what you saw. I believe everything you said tonight. The question obviously is, will the proof come forward? So if anyone has proof, you can provide it at Chimney Vent, or obviously to the authorities. And if not, we just have to sit back and wait for the trial to finish, and then once it's over, we can get evidence, we can see the evidence and FOIA request all that stuff, and then see for ourselves exactly why people who have ran into Mike Dibble have had questions about his legitimacy as a human being and whether or not he's hiding this terrible, awful thing. And I thank you, Jane, for coming on, and take care of those little ones.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good one. Thank you, guys.
You too. Happy birthday.
Thank you.